Here we will discuss the biopsychological factors or events that may have facilitated and or inhibited the resolution of the psychological crisis. Apply multi-systems lens to examine how family, community, institutions, and larger social policy and social forces helped or hindered the interviewee's life aspirations or opportunities. My mother often reflects on how her life would have turned out differently if she had access to a better education system, an education system similar to that of America's. In Jamaica, when she was growing up, schooling was privatized and required payment. So if a family couldn't pay for their child to go to school at a certain point, that child would have to end school prematurely. My mother's limited access to affordable education resulted in limited access to good paying jobs and her ability to move upward, so upward mobility. To end the cycle of poverty and gain a chance for a better life, she sought out to come to America and obtain a visa because she knew that America would afford her better opportunities. The other theory that I decided to apply to my mother's interview was the ecological theory. In this theory, it is believed that an individual's environment plays an active role in their fundamental development. This theory breaks down a person's environment in the following levels: macrosystem, mesosystem, exosystem, and macrosystem. My mother's microsystem consisted of her mother, her stepfather, and later her first child and daughter. Within my mother's macrosystem growing up, she experienced great deals of interpersonal conflict with her mother. My mother explained that even though she considers her mother her best friend, she vividly remembers getting into many conflicts with her growing up. Maybe some of these conflicts could have been avoided if my mother had a sibling growing up. While my grandmother raised my mother, she was often dealing with financial stressors that she would take out on my mother. This wasn't a healthy way to deal with stress, but at the time that was the only way my grandmother knew how to deal with the stress of her world. This often affected my mother. The stress that my mother experienced being raised by a single mom in Jamaica did help mold her into the woman she is today. Discussing limitations. Some of the limitations that I'll be discussing will be applied to Erikson's developmental theory. Limitations within Erikson's developmental theory consisted of age limits of the young adulthood stage. This was a limitation because the age limits within Erikson's developmental stages are usually kind of vague and they don't always match up with the individual. And we see that here with my mother because she ended her young adulthood a little bit later than most people. Societal and cultural norms also play a role within Erikson's theory and can give limitations. In my mother's case, her young adulthood stage started later than most due to the climate of her environment. My mother also went against her societal norm by taking time during her emerging adulthood to date before marrying, and she decided to marry at an older age. This helped with her self-discovery. She also dated men that were not in her age group. She dated older men unlike her peers. And that concludes my presentation.